The waters of the South Australian basin protected Kangaroo Island. Burqa and her son Yam felt sheltered, but Yam had to be weaned and become an adult. Kakira the koala had given birth to a baby who was still clumsy, often found tangled up between the trunk of a eucalyptus and the body of its mother. Times were prosperous for Paraji and his children, Waka and Kintala. The dingo had been able to keep supplies of food under the sand of the desert. A colony of flying foxes had established temporary quarters to the north. Each night, squadrons of bats swooped down on the bushes, which were in full bloom. All of this Paraji projected on the Dome of Dreams, for it is in this way we enter life when our dream begins. Close to a watering hole, an emu pecks depending on his luck an insect, a petal, or a tasty bud. A willy wagtail interrupts his bath. That signals the emu. Perhaps it's a troublemaker who approaches. A reflection gives away the spoil sport. It's a red kangaroo, which seems to be contemplated by another marsupial, the numbat. Disrupted, the emu takes some steps to the side, leaving the kangaroo to start on his meal. The emu seems curious and perhaps annoyed. The visitors seem to multiply within eyesight. A second kangaroo, a younger one, comes to join in with the invader. The emu is the largest bird in Australia and can raise his view 6 feet from the ground. Cousin to the African ostrich and also of the cassowary and kiwis, his strength and his dignity permit him to stake his claim over the watering hole. Now it's the kangaroo's turn to be bothered. The willy wagtail starts things up and is imitated immediately by the emu, who is suddenly assertive. All is in its place, and the emu moves away, master of his domain. For a long time, hasn't he survived on this continent without having the need to fly, or without even having the means? The emu is falling asleep. There is nothing to fear. Here, nature never has opposed him with a predator. Having come from the southeast part of Asia, the ancestors of Paraji the dingo disembarked in Australia more than 4,000 years ago. They encountered there the real men, the Aborigines, who had arrived 40,000 years earlier. The men and the dingoes lived together, sometimes associating for reasons of hunting or protection. But today, the unloved dingoes wander alone and wild in the middle of the desert. Kintala, the son of Paraji, has dug up in the sand an old kangaroo bone. His sister, Waka, immediately rushes to fight him for it. In a few seconds, she gains the upper hand. It's more than Kintala can take, and he starts to chase after her. He has too often been snubbed, humiliated, and deprived by his father as well as by his sister. Once again, the bone passes from one muzzle to the other. Letting her brother win for the first time, Waka plays nonchalant. Waka looks for a scrap or some leftovers that would give her equal status with her brother. She prospects half-heartedly without any result. Then she gives up her plan and changes her strategy. She decides to try to get pity from her brother. Her begging doesn't work. Kintala seems disinterested. The behavior of Waka excites the curiosity of Kintala. Had his sister discovered a prize even more desirable than a kangaroo bone? As soon as her diversion tactic has succeeded, Waka goes again towards the one unique treasure available. Kintala understands that he has fallen into a trap, but it's too late. Waka will keep her trophy. She has now mastered a new weapon of survival: cunning. Survival is easier when one is sheltered on a southern island, which the sea always insulated and protected from dingoes, eaters of koalas. Survival is easier when one has been programmed to be born during a season when the eucalyptus carries the most abundant foliage. Survival is easier when a mother is there to teach you how to reach for the sky. Kakira's baby has grown. He knows now how to keep his balance on his mother's head, climb her body with confidence, and not to be shaken if he burdens her during his own ascent. Kakira's task will be to familiarize her child with the eucalyptus and to teach him that the tree is at the same time his house and his meal. Soon he will eat, like her, 2 pounds of foliage a day. It contains an oily and toxic cellulose. But he will be able to digest it thanks to the bacteria that his mother has given him, and thanks to an intestinal tract of exceptional length compared to his size, more than 6 feet. Kakira's baby must take advantage of these intimate moments with his mother. He will be independent at the age of 1 year, and an adult by 2 years. Then he will live a life more often alone for around 10 years, with his trees as companions, as indispensable and precious to him as oxygen. The eucalyptus forest will be his homeland, and if it dies, he will die also. On the island of the koalas, who are learning about life, we find also a young kangaroo who refuses to grow up, Yam. Yam would like to nurse, but his mother is moving away. He comes back towards her. She moves away again. Burka cleans even the least of the folds of her pouch. Inside, she grooms the 4 teats with care, one of which has become distended so that when Yam became bigger, he could nurse from the outside. Even though he must be weaned, Yam demands access precisely to this teat. He knows that Burka doesn't want to feed him anymore, but once again, it ends up that she has given in. Yam loves the softness of this downy sack where he has spent his first months. He loves the warmth of this milk. He would like to stay a baby forever, to be the little Peter Pan of kangaroos, so that for him, life would be nothing but an extended childhood. But no spirit of the last continent will fulfill his wish. Whether he wants to or not, Yam will become an adult. This is the true harshness of nature. To become an adult is mandatory. On Kangaroo Island, where the sea has prohibited predators, the danger comes from within. One can't take precautions, fight it, nor even recognize it, because it is invisible. Once a dominant male, to whom the females headed for to assure their offspring the best possible lineage, Mako is nothing more than a ghost. The mysterious illness hit him unknowingly several weeks ago. His fur is becoming tarnished, and the grapnel formed by his claws has only traces of his former strength. The enemy is called chlamydia, a bacteria that koalas transmit sexually and that affects 1/3 of them. The disease results in symptoms of general weakness, respiratory problems, and impaired vision. Mako will no longer see the eucalyptus trembling in the marine breeze. A tropical ecosystem where the roots of the trees plunge under the water, marshes as far as the eye can see, nutrients, mud, where life abounds. Such is the coastal zone of the north of Australia. It forms with the Great Central Desert that is dominated by the Sacred Rocks the same administrative region. This is called the Northern Territories, and its size is comparable to Italy, France, and Spain put together. Here, the white-bellied sea eagle guzzles and fattens up. He just needs to swoop down on the reflection of the water to come back with his talons loaded up with fish. One could believe that the plain is forever liquefied at the feet of the rocky escarpment. All the same, from week to week, the level of the waters will fall until January or February, when the new monsoons will arrive. Wherever he is, the white-bellied eagle will change his diet according to the degree of dryness of the marshes. If the fish become rarer in his fishing spot, he will hunt little mammals, serpents, or birds. In flying over the great estuary, when the tide rolls in, the white-bellied eagle will see perhaps a female crocodile heading towards her nest. This marsh is the domain of the saltwater crocodile, the largest in the world, also called salties because they tolerate seawater as well as fresh water. Two and a half months earlier, a female laid around 50 eggs in this nest. Before cracking through their shells, the young crocodiles inside the egg have already begun little piercing cries in order to notify their mother and to synchronize their first entrance into the world. The babies have damaged their shells thanks to a small protuberant tooth designed for this purpose. The only thing left to do is emerge from the nest. Their mother has already removed a covering of sand and earth in anticipation of their arrival. Nature has invented for the saltwater crocodile's usage a system of determining the sex found in the temperature of the nest. If this temperature is elevated higher than 91 degrees Fahrenheit, the brood will bear only females. If it is lower, the babies will be males. In the same manner, the incubation will be shorter if the temperature has been elevated. In hatching from their shell, the babies look for their mother, who will be on time. She will guide them to the water. Sometimes it will happen even as she carries them after they have been delicately placed in her mouth. The newborn crocodiles will see only a few survive. Even before they have cleared the meadow that leads them to the water, the others will have been devoured by aggressive fish, varanus, birds, or turtles. Although they have nothing to fear from the comb-crested jacana, whose long toes allow him to walk on top of the vegetation, they must distrust their fellow adults, willing cannibals. And if they escape all of these dangers, their weight will be 10,000 times more than their birth weight when they reach adulthood. It's the season where the white-bellied sea eagle rests after his easily obtained meals, while the sun goes down on this earth where one can die on the same day they are born. In the morning, when the great cockatoos are barely awake, the bats return to the perch. They have spent the night more than 30 miles from there, where they were drawn by a great abundance of flowers and nectars. In case of necessity, they could go another 30 miles. And when their resources are exhausted, they will migrate sometimes 600 miles to be present in the fullness of the season when their favorite fruits have ripened. For the moment, the flying foxes will always return to perch on the same group of trees, in spite of the distance to cover. It's there and only there that they feel at home. They will gather by the hundreds of thousands, in clusters which will sometimes break the strongest branches because of their weight. Unlike other species of bats, the red flying foxes do not look for grottos or covered rocky habitats. They love the mangroves and the tropical forests, where they establish their temporary colonies called camps. They choose, for this reason, the highest trees. It's there that they will reproduce in periods of the year that can vary according to the availability of food in the region. From the other side of the continent, a mist, cottony and magical, envelops Kangaroo Island. For several days, Burqa has forbidden her teat to her son Yam. At each moment that she introduces her muzzle in the opening of the pouch, it's as if to reassure herself that one more time, a sweet miracle has been accomplished. The new baby is a simple fetus, still naked and blind. But his limbs are already well formed, and he holds on with his mouth to one of the teats, the one which he will stay attached to and from which he will receive nourishment during the 6 months to come. some flying foxes lag behind in returning to the trees of the camp. They are arriving at a moment of intense fighting that keeps their peers from finding their assigned place on the branches. They jostle each other, they fight, they bite. Everything is done to guarantee that no one will encroach on the 3 inches that one has chosen as a perch. A lost flying fox climbs the branches to try and find his home. He is alerted as soon as a rival comes along the same way. Feeling that his ownership is being threatened, he refuses passage to the trespasser and starts the attack. While a few duelists are still deciding the outcome of their problem, the majority of the flying foxes have calmed down and are already dozing. If the bat sleeps upside down, it's because during his evolution, the body of this mammal was transformed into a flying machine. There is a membrane of skin between their fingers and toes. With certain species, the fingers of the hand have been elongated to form the structure on which the wing is kept tight. This results in bats not being able to hold on with their legs, but only use them to fly. Unlike birds, who can at the same time make use of their 2 wings and 2 feet, they cannot land on a branch. They are required to hang. A few that are still excited continue to fight, more and more subdued. They will confront each other again for a few moments, so that each can have a chance to adjust to the space that they have, and to put their claws on the exact segment that they have reserved. Finally, they stretch, they yawn, and they cover themselves with their wings folded up over their body. This position will limit disagreements connected to the wind and the sun. This is how the flying foxes will spend the day, motionless, as if they had suddenly ripened on the trees like monstrous fruits. To the north, in Salty's territory, the saltwater crocodile, a shore crab goes about his business. His visit foretells that others will be coming every day at the same time. Some salties, who until now have remained invisible, emerge and get ready to attack. But as soon as a new crab enters the scene, the hunter withdraws in order to let his master go first. Ken, the dominant crocodile who terrorizes his peers. While the more reasonable ones stand aside in order, waiting their turn, Ken makes one undisciplined one toe the line. The rebel has left, humiliated and pitiful. Ken can finally make his way towards his meal. The arrival of Ken makes a presumptuous one step back, who had taken advantage of the confusion in order to go onto the beach. A spectator withdraws. The way is free, and the ground is cleared. Proper etiquette has been followed since Ken has had the first mouthful. That's all he was asking for this time. Now he can leave the place to his fellow crocodiles. The jaws of a crocodile can exert a pressure of 2,500 pounds per square inch. They contain conical teeth that cannot be used to chew. A prey such as a crab is therefore barely dismembered before being swallowed. Sometimes instinct is stronger. One is required with larger prey to dislocate the prize by shaking it violently. Now it's the youngest crocodiles who wriggle, all small fries that the miraculous fishing has overexcited. They were cautious not to be eaten by some older cannibals. They stood aloof until now. The tongue of a crocodile, half fused to the bottom of its mouth, is not of great utility to him. Therefore, it can't contribute to sending the food to the throat, a handicap which is remedied by the great and rough seesawing of the muzzle. As if the noise of the splashing and the cracking of worn-out shells had woken them up, the red flying foxes returned to normal, little by little on the trees where they had been sleeping. Alone, close to a trunk, a couple seems to be quarreling. The bats jostle and claw at each other. But their dispute is not really an argument. Their embrace is a loving one. In a few moments, the two flying foxes will start an example for the entire colony by finally beginning the season of love. Required to mate with their heads down, the male is equipped with a very bent penis, parallel to the abdominal wall. Vigorous embracing follows the sexual act, as it had preceded it. As soon as they have finished this, the couple will be ready to start the act all over again. The male is capable of producing his sperm ahead of time and of accumulating it without the quality of fertilization being degraded. In the same manner, the female can slow down the implantation of the fertilized ovum in her uterus or place in suspension the growth of the embryo. These mechanisms allow the birth to happen during the most favorable season. The preceding duo, now exhausted, set the example for the others. All of the red flying foxes are thinking only of mating. In a few moments, every branch of every tree will be quivering in this nuptial dance. The nuptial ceremony being completed, they calm down at the same time as sleep commences. They still twitch a bit, bringing out a last burst of pleasure. From their wing, they will make a sheet. Their vigor will come back tomorrow, when the hour of pleasure will start again. An attentive turtle dove. The big and protecting familiar rock. Nothing can disturb the dinner of Kintala the dingo. Except maybe his sly and intolerable sister, Waka. In spite of the warnings of Kintala, the young female seems to want to harass him when a turtle dove, rejoined by its companion, comes to parade in the area. Finding an extreme interest in the spectacle, Waka forgets to bribe her brother. It's not only through fascination that Waka rushes into pursuing the birds. Her instinct makes her also see, behind the gracefulness of these creased wings, a meal that perhaps must be captured and killed by her when the earth will have fewer resources to offer than the sky. The hunt for the birds having failed, Waka returns to her brother. He is used to her hypocritical whimpering and acts indifferent. Kintala doesn't want to be manipulated anymore by his sister, and he will demonstrate that to her if necessary by using his teeth. And his meal will become available for someone else only when he is sufficiently satisfied. Then, and only then, Waka will be permitted to scratch at the rest. On Kangaroo Island, the wallabies share their habitat with the gray kangaroos. They belong to the same family, but they are differentiated by their size and their weight, which is 40 pounds less. Pogo, Cartania's baby, seems to have an increasing pleasure in observing the world. He is at an age where the strangeness of the world stimulates his curiosity. However, he is not yet capable of leaving the pouch, and his mother would forbid that if he had already tried. From now on, Burka's pouch protects a baby, but it still looks like a fetus attached to the teat like an umbilical cord. This situation upsets Yam, Burka's other child. The young kangaroo has taken badly to his weaning, but he has to get accustomed to his new food, fibrous and full of chlorophyll. Yam hasn't lost all hope of becoming the child that he was yesterday. But when he tries to grab the teat, Burka pushes him away without consideration. Yam feels alone in the world, and it's certainly not the wallabies that will console him. The young kangaroo still wants to believe that all is not lost, but this time the confrontation will turn to boxing. From week to week, at the base of Mount Artula, the savannas are yellowing. The rising heat absorbs the humidity that the vegetation had accumulated during the previous months. The grass doesn't bend anymore under the feet of Kintala. It breaks. The young dingo and his sister Waka have rediscovered the world underneath new colors. A gold cover has been placed on their territory. The sensations are new too. The air is dry. The plains are dozing more deeply. The soft sounds of the past are now only squeaks. The landscape of odors is less confused, as if a mapmaker had underlined each fragrant trail. Kintala behaves like a tribal chief with his sister. He notices that she is slow and waits to give her the time to catch up to him. As usual, Waka only does what she wants to, and she lets herself be carried along by an odor, a butterfly, or a bird. Tired of waiting for her, Kintala goes along his way. After a few moments of solitary exploration, Waka can no longer find her brother. Kintala is getting worried and waits for the scent that will give away the arrival of the latecomer. Kintala is looking for his sister, a male responsibility for those lower on the hierarchical scale. In the miniature pact that they form with their father, it's Paraji who dominates and Kintala who accepts being humiliated by him all the time. In compensation for this, he wants to be respected by his sister, who is more talented with cunning than with strength. A blast of air brings the scent of her brother to Waka's nostrils. It's time to meet him again, and to go back towards Paraji, who is waiting for them somewhere on the large red plain. Along the way, Waka and Kintala will make a short stop, as if to reassure themselves that the sacred rock is still there to protect lost dingoes. Some throws of a boomerang from there, the largest kangaroo leaps up and down his kingdom of dry grasses. With the red kangaroos, the young are distinguished by their dull color, which will turn into a flamboyant red when they become adults. The males differ from the females by their weight, which is 2 times greater. The emus share the red kangaroo's habitat and their ability because of their great height. They can make out from far away the arrival of a potential danger. The kangaroos form with the wallabies and the wallaroos, the family of macropods, a term which refers to their disproportionate feet, which they are equipped with for jumping. The macropods, moreover, have a tail with powerful muscles, which acts like a pendulum when they run. The kangaroo's tail equally allows them to sit in a vertical position. They stand as if they are seated on a tripod. Their arms are almost atrophied, which limits the violence of the fighting. Their capacity to run and jump made up the principal evolutionary advantage of kangaroos when the dingoes took advantage of the dryness to kill their weakened babies. Contrary to that, it leads one to suppose that in the habitat where they evolve, the kangaroos need only a little water and green grass all year long. Today, the short supply of dingoes has increased their numbers. In the Australian bush, that one also calls the outback, the red kangaroo has become for the real men a divinity, and for the others a strangeness incarnated. This is why he is the very symbol that makes Australia, wherever you are, down under.